Hello everybody, welcome to Percussion Axiom TV. My name is Tom Burritt and I am your host. This is episode number 54, Keikos Legacy. That's a huge topic for today, so we're just going to kind of scratch the surface, talk about a few things. Before we do that, I want to get into just two quick announcements. We've been talking a lot about PASIC, which is right around the corner in Indianapolis. And in the last show, we talked a little bit about using Twitter to communicate while we're there. I've been talking a little bit with the headquarters, the PAS headquarters, and they came up with a really, really cool idea of using a hashtag. You see it right here. So when you, if you're at the convention, you're going to tweet out things that are going on. Maybe you love this clinic or you dug this concert or whatever. Go ahead and write number PASIC09. Just write that in your tweet somewhere, and it'll show up on a stream that you can view at the Twitter if you search for that hashtag. But you'll also be able to view it in the exhibit hall on a big monitor. So they're actually going to stream what people are saying about PASIC. I think that's really, really cool. So big ups to them for being on top of that. That's the first announcement. The second quick announcement is I'm going to be at the Maltech booth for my artist sign time at 10:15, between 10 and 11 basically on Saturday morning. There's probably lots of stuff that you should go see during that hour, but if you can, I don't ask for much other than comments, but I would love to have you guys there around 10:15 to 10:30 at the Maltech booth in the exhibit hall, especially if I haven't had a chance to meet you yet at PASIC. But I would love for everyone to show up. Maybe I'll try to drum up some prizes or something for that. But I would love to have as many of you there as possible during that time. So 10:15, 10:30 at the Maltech booth. And when I do the PASIC preview show, I'll mention that again. And yeah. So we're going to get right on with the show today because there's lots to cover. We're going to start by, reading a comment. I'm working on a cold here, guys. It's been with me forever, so I apologize about that. So, because I wanted to do this show last week, just never got there. But I tweeted out what you guys thought about this possible topic, and I got some really good replies. And one reply that I think really solidified it for me was from Dane Palmer, who writes, "At T. Burritt, I'm not a fan of any sorts of Japanese marimba, but knowledge of it could make me more tolerant." So, Dane, hope you don't mind me using you on the show here. Thank you so much for that honest opinion and comment. And I think that's true for a lot of us. It was for me at one point. And, one of the reasons I started this show was to take on issues like this. This is music that is, for a greater or lesser degree, what we would call atonal. It's a little maybe harder to understand. Not just because it's harder to understand, but maybe just because it's more unusual than something we're used to hearing or something we've been exposed to. But I think once we better learn what it is, better understand it, it can be incredibly powerful. All right, and so I think that's that's something that's a perfect topic for today's episode. So today's Axiom is Keikos Legacy. Many of you have probably played her music that she's written. She's written many, many, many pieces. To me, though, her legacy really lies in the fact that she did all this commissioning in the late 60s, early 70s that has given us, in my opinion, some of our greatest marimba works, period. All right, so we're going to get into a little bit of history just real quick. The first of these was in 1962. Think about that, 1962, a long time. There's a piece by Miyoshi called Conversation, and then 64 came Torse 3, 68 came Time, the Miki's Time, and then 1971, a good year, that was the year I was born, Sueyoshis Mirage was composed. And to me, these are some of the greatest pieces we have in our repertoire, absolutely, bar none. So we're going to talk a little bit about the style of these pieces. To better understand that, the Japanese composers of the day, of which I've just named several, were really basically Western trained. Miyoshi, for example, was graduated from the Paris Conservatory. So they weren't as interested in writing Japanese folk tunes or using traditional. They did have elements of Japanese music in their music, but they were heavily influenced by the contemporary compositions of the 1960s and 70s. And when we think about that, we think, generally along the lines of atonality, some serialism approaches to composing. And so we have to understand that to really understand this music. But it's not entirely 20th century based, meaning that many of these pieces are actually programmatic in nature. Conversation, actually, if you know that piece, you can definitely hear literal conversations going on, passing from character to character or place to place. I know I'm going to talk about Mirage here in a minute, and it also actually depicts a kind of theater called kabuki theater. So these pieces, although atonal and not necessarily about, consonance versus dissonance, but more about pitch collections, pitch sets, also can be very dramatic. So I find it kind of interesting that, it doesn't take tonal music to actually make something powerful or descriptive, which is what we think about when we think about programmatic works. Okay, so that's a little bit of history, a little background. So these composers were heavily Western trained. So to some degree, they have a sense of Japanese about them, but they're not totally folky Japanese cultural pieces, if you will. A couple of things about style. Okay, when you perform these pieces, one of the reasons Keiko did this work with these composers is she really wanted composers to explore the full range of the instrument. Now, back then it wasn't generally 5-octave. That would come just a little bit later, actually. So most of these pieces you can play on a C. It's actually maybe all of them you can play on a C, which makes them nice if you don't have a full range marimba. But not just the full range of the marimba this way, but the full range from an emotional standpoint. So you have lots of rolls, glisses. You have incredible extreme dynamic changes from 3 Ps to 4 Fs. And because of that, mallet choice can be very, very important. So, it can be hard to find the right mallet for any of these pieces. Generally, you want to find something that has multitonal, Lee Stevens has some multitonal mallets that work well, and another popular choice that I've seen are the Malletech Canary Concerto series, these yellow mallets, CN21s. Very hard and abrasive, which is sort of an element of the style of this, but also have enough yarn on them that you can roll. Incidentally, and I'm not just saying this because of the topic of today, but my Tom Burritt 19s, I partially had Mirage in mind because it's a piece I play often. So I think they work real well too. But something that can be pretty bright and abrasive when you're playing loud, but also something that can roll very well. So we're going to talk quick about Mirage. I'm going to play just a little bit about this. Another difficult thing about these pieces is they can be very interpretive, meaning Mirage is a great example. It generally moves. It's not often in time. There's lots of gestures. There's lots of grace notes. And so you have to be careful about your body and what your body's doing and moving and being careful not to be distracting. So this piece is in several different movements or sections. Introduction, there's chorale, there's chorale, introduction, chorale. See if I can tell them all on the spot here. March, I think it is, march or procession, then movement, and then coda. I think I missed one in there, but there's 5 or 6 different sections of this. And by the way, Brian Zader has a great article on this piece that you can find if you go to the PAS homepage and search under online research journal. He goes into a lot of detail, and so it's a great article there, Brian, my colleague up at Texas A&M Commerce. But each of these sections sort of builds in tension and releases at one point. So I'm going to play just the first introduction part to you, and you'll see how to be careful, how to interpret some of this, how to go towards a moment and release it. And so this is a little first part of Mirage. So you can see from that, I tried to make this big arc of a phrase and have it all come to that one moment, dig it up here, and then release the tension on the way down. So So I'm going to leave a full-length performance of this at thomasburritt.tumblr.com, and so you can check out the full effect of this. Maybe we need to do another episode on this. Let me know what you guys think. I thank you so much for your comments. And the question of the episode is, what's your favorite Japanese piece and why? Thank you so much for watching.